Okay, I want to welcome my friend Chad Zolo from Elevation Church. Chad, thanks so much for hanging out and having a conversation about online ministry.
Yes, happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Honored to
Yeah,
be here.
yeah. So we got connected. We hung out together for about it was like a day and a half in the
Right.
Boston area. Kind of we got exposed to each other and hanging out. I want to first off set off I want to know how much can you bench? Okay, I'm gonna this is my first question. How much can you
How much can I bench? That's a good question. You know what? It's funny. I've been working out because I'm very inspired by my pastor, who
Of course,
is,
man.
very fit, and I can't even tell you. I would say probably less than what you would think. I mean,
Oh,
maybe 240, 250, maybe. I'm
okay.
not that strong. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like
Okay.
350, something like that. But I will admit though, I haven't done like a max in quite a long time. So,
Yeah. That
but
well, I just say that's more than me. And I have a runner's body, so I stay to run.
yes,
so so
I, hey,
and Rick inspires me to run. That's all I'm gonna say. So
there you
uh
go.
so okay, so let's talk about let's talk a little bit online ministry. So obviously Elevation, you guys I believe are one of the first churches. So there, for those who don't know, when the church online platform, the CHOP platform that a lot of ministries use,
Right,
Elevation was one of the first churches that were part of that round of churches that helped launch it. So there's a bunch of churches
right,
that funded it, and now there's 4,000 churches using it every month. It's crazy. But Elevation was one of the initial churches that was kind of part of that kind of seed to kind of get going. So you guys were on that.
yep.
You guys have had all levels of iterations, but talk a little bit about how Elevation does online ministry, because I bet it's not just limited to the church online platform. I bet YouTube's part of that. How does that look like in your context with your role?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a couple years ago, we really decided to kind of go all in on the online church thing, whatever that is for everybody. And before that, yeah, we had partnered up with Life Church to be one of those first people, but we weren't doing a whole lot with it. Um, and honestly, we weren't even really utilizing it much. We were just kind
Mhm.
of broadcasting. We had this Elevation Network 24/7, where we'd show past messages and videos of albums or whatever. And then a couple of years ago, we decided, you know what, like we have a lot of people who are tuning in and care, and it seems like they care. So what are we going to do with these people? And so we're like, well, let's invest in this online church thing. And so I came on board to help with that. And so certainly we already had kind of started utilizing more to its potential, the Life Church church online platform. We started chat hosts and, all of that stuff, and volunteers helping out to do that on the weekend. That's pretty much where it stopped for us. But our pastor was really like, no, I want to kind of do it a different way. Like I don't want that to be like the end of the road for us. Like, well, let's see how far we can get with church online platform. He's like, there's so much available to us. Why wouldn't we use what's available? And so, as is typical here, he's kind of like the, pusher driver to, hey, let's do this, let's do this. And so we started to explore what it looks like to go live on YouTube and on Facebook. And so currently, just to make a long story of what we do short, is we're live on the church online platform. We're live on Facebook, and we're live on YouTube. And those are our primary streams. Now, we're also pushing those feeds to our app so people can watch live there. We're pushing a feed to Roku so people can watch it. Things like that, which are great and they work too. But where we can really engage with people is certainly church online, YouTube, and Facebook. But then we also broadcast across all of our platforms.
Yeah.
So we're broadcasting on Pastor Stephen Furtick's channel for YouTube and Facebook. We're broadcasting on Elevation Worship's channel, and we're broadcasting on Elevation Church's channel, because for us, they all have such a different platform. So
Mhm.
many people know about our pastor who don't necessarily know that he's connected to our church. Same thing across the board of Elevation Worship. A lot of people know of Elevation Worship, but don't know that it's connected to a church called Elevation Church. So I hear those stories all day long. So anyway, we're just trying to get as much reach as we can, as quickly as we can, and engage where there's already platforms built with, you know the stats, right? Billions of people on Facebook, and YouTube's the second most search, second most used search engine. So we're just trying to go and use these platforms to, not necessarily do what they were made for, but we can utilize it for sure.
Which I love. And I think that's and I've seen a little bit of this movement. It's kind of, and I think you guys have pushed it, and we've started to do that too, where a lot of online pastors really limited their space to that subdomain of the church online.
Right.
It's like, that's all their job. But it's like, then what happens is, I've noticed it with like, I was listening to something recently about like Apple, and they said one of the problems when you put something like Siri, for example, under the iPhone department, where their development is limited towards whatever the boss sees as their principle. Right. So Siri can't be its big, audacious, audacious thing. It's limited to the boss. And so if you're so worried about the church online platform, then you're like, well, if YouTube numbers are bigger than my numbers, then that might kill this thing. And it kind of gets, but I love that your church is forward thinking. It's like, no, it's about all this. And it's about,
right.
That makes a lot of sense. So my natural follow-up is, what does like a response card look like? What does engagement look like? Or how do you drive people on Facebook Live and YouTube? Like, how do you do? So the beauty of the Chop platform is everything's there, and you can have like very clear next steps. But what does that look like on YouTube and Facebook Live for you?
Yeah. So it's looked different on each platform, and it's looked like how, that's kind of where we've had to become creative and just figure out how do we adapt and develop each platform. So I'll back up a little bit just to give you the framework as to how we think about these platforms. And then that'll help do it just how we actually utilize them. Is when I kind of started looking at this, what's our model going to be? How are we going to start doing this across different platforms? I just had to back up and look at it just like our campus model, where it's very much seen like, in Charlotte, we have our main location, which is in our Ballantyne area, but we knew that so many people were driving from our University City area. And instead of saying to those people, you've got to drive so far to be a part of this, hey, we're going to launch one right in University City. That's where you are. You're going to get the same experience. It might look a little bit different, diverse, culture, things like that. So that's the way I view Facebook, for instance, is it's simply a campus for me. And I don't necessarily feel like I need to send people from my Facebook campus to get a better experience somewhere else. I don't want to do that to them, because then I feel like what I'm telling them is where you live, where you interact in your life is not good enough for us to be there. And so I don't want to do that. I want to say, okay, I know that's where you live. That's what you're familiar with. So I'm going to tailor what I do to where you are. Now, again, that does not mean water down the gospel. That does not mean that. I'm just saying mechanics of I'm going to tailor how I connect with you to where you are. So what that's looked like, and it gets into a lot of different technical things that we do with our production, but we are feeding each platform different graphics that promote people to connect with us in different ways, right? So for Facebook, for instance, there's a different way or different steps that they're going to take than when somebody responds to Christ on church online platform. They're going to click the respond now button. Well, that's not available on Facebook. So this may sound just real, oh yeah, well, duh, of course you would do that. But like our graphics say, click the link that's in the chat window, So we'll pin a link in the chat window to the top of the post, like in the chat window. And when they click on that link, a form pops up. And so it says, hey, you just accepted Christ. Great. Fill out this information. We'll connect you. Well, we know that they've clicked that on Facebook, so we know how to talk to those people when we're following up with them. Same thing across YouTube, right? So same thing also when we know, did you click that on Pastor Stephen's Facebook or did you click that on Elevation Church's Facebook? Yeah. Again, I know how to follow up with you based on that. I know that you're very familiar with Pastor you might not know that there's a church behind this. You know what I mean? Things like that. So it gets pretty sophisticated like that, but we're really utilizing currently what Facebook has in its building currently. And that's not a lot of fancy buttons. It's not a lot of fancy, like, a give button or it's a lot of encouraging people to click on a link. For us, that really works right now. Now we are developing more of how does that, that's part of us for saying, like, how do you continue to push that forward with a company that you have no control over? Well, again, it's kind of like where, we're trying to either develop something in-house that can work with Facebook or try to work with Facebook to help develop more that is congruent with what we need. And so what's really cool, and this is kind of like an inside look, and some of y'all might know this anyway, but Facebook has just hired somebody recently to oversee their whole faith-based community. Because what they did is they did research into, they're going this whole community-based, community is what we want. Well, who has the best communities? And so they did some research and found out with all of their people that the most significant and important communities to people and the ones with the most impact are actually faith-based communities. Well, that's not a shock to us, of course, but so they said, well, how do we tailor what we're doing to them? So this lady they hired, and she got in contact with some churches. And so we've been in very close communication. She's actually in our building today. We're meeting with her, and she's talking about, what do you guys need to do this better online? So we're able to say, hey, these are the things that we want to be able to do on Facebook to make a better online community for church in general. So anyway, I say all that to say, right now, we're just using what Facebook has, but I think we're also getting a voice into what Facebook will be as well, which is great, And so again, just tailor that to then YouTube as well. They have, cards that can be put up in a video. We'll utilize those. We'll utilize links as well. So does that answer what?
No. I love that you're thinking of it as a native experience, and I think the campus illustration is it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. And I bet you guys see a very clear engagement increase when you keep people there too. I mean, that's probably
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work. You guys are working really hard, and I bet it's not like there's an easier way for you to do it, but you guys are doing it for a clear purpose. So
right, exactly. And I know that a lot of thought and a lot of things that I've heard from different people are like, well, we really like, our whole goal is to get people to church online because that's where we can best interact with them. And I understand that. I really do. Like, I mean, there's a part of that makes sense. Just for us, again, it's just that feeling of, I don't want to take somebody out of their native environment. And just knowing that, like, that becomes, especially for Facebook for us, like Facebook is the only kind of organic platform that people can find us, aside from running ads and things like that, I mean, people aren't going to just like happen across online, like church online. People aren't just going to happen across necessarily those websites. So that becomes just 100%. A really big open door for us, but we just don't push them somewhere else.
Yeah. It makes sense. I was just talking to somebody about this, that, a lot of, like, we haven't spent, it's kind of says a lot about where our church is at, but we haven't really done a huge ad budget ever. Like, I've never really had money to go out and do that. And a lot of our growth has been slow and steady. And primarily the reason is because it's all by people starting small groups and inviting. So,
right.
And again, and I think if you're listening to this and you're kind of engaging in this, something you're going to hear over and over again is, what's really important is that you have to figure out what your church does well and replicate that. And this is why I like talking to other ministries, especially larger ministries, because we get asked, like, here it is. And the immediate thing is to go replicate it, but you got to figure out, like, how Elevation does church. We have the same mission and vision generally, the end goal, but how the methodology is going to look a little different. And I can't be Elevation and you can't be Saddleback,
right.
because we have two different pastors and two different elder boards, two different, and so I love that. And I love that. But I will say you're pushing, you're challenging some of my thoughts about, like, I do have a goal where I'm trying to push them off of
Right.
certain platforms. And so it makes me you're stirring up something in me, like, oh, I got to revisit that. So I'm curious. So talk a little bit about like generally, like, where do you guys see the most engagement? Is it Facebook, YouTube, then your church online platform, or like what's the general? And I know it's 2018 right now. Stuff might reorg and there might be something else, but generally, how do you prioritize that?
Definitely Facebook, then YouTube, then church online. And I think that's kind of just goes back to what I was talking about, of kind of the organic reach of what Facebook has become for us, and just the amount of followers that we have within our Facebook pages. But then if you're talking, even break it down further than that, like we're talking, so Pastor Stephen's channel is going to be the most engaged, then it's the churches, and then it's Elevation Worship. But then interestingly enough, on YouTube, we haven't done a whole lot until recently with Pastor Stephen's YouTube channel. So he's one of the lowest engaged channels for YouTube, but our church's channel is the highest, and then it's Elevation Worship. And then, but in terms of just as a whole, you're going to talk about, Facebook is certainly the most, then we go YouTube, then church online platform, and the app and other things. It's hard to track that engagement. There's not really much engagement happening, but that would be where it's happening the most, is on Facebook.
So to talk a little bit about, like, so you've kind of alluded to this, but so do you guys, so you specifically, like, are you positioned as more of a traditional campus, or are you a little bit of a hybrid, or are you just kind of like an anomaly, like you're positioned in a very unique way?
Yeah, so within our organization, we are it's probably more of a hybrid, honestly. So I'm considered a campus in some regards. And I was just talking about this with our team, because we're in a little bit of a tension right now, because we're in everybody's meetings. I'm in all the campus meetings, but I'm also in all the comm meetings. And then I'm in all, you know what I'm saying? And then I'm in all the digital meetings, because we're kind of everything. And so honestly, as an organization, we're trying to figure that out, what that looks like for us, because we do consider it a campus, but we're just not, we're more digital in the stats, and what we're measuring doesn't match. You know what I'm saying? We can say the same words in terms of like what we call VIPs, our first time guests. We can say, like, but numbers wise, in terms of like who's attending, or they're just not the same, and they're not even the same as how we measure them and all of that stuff. So it's just, I wouldn't say there's an easy answer to that. I would say a hybrid. It really is a hybrid right now, but it's certainly a tension, because I'm in meetings all day long every day. So
I was gonna say, I've been through phases of that, and generally I just tell people that I like it complicated, and I think until it gets defined, I do try my hardest to get out of every meeting I can. So question on, so stats wise, generally, and I know this is probably a moving target a little bit, but how do you measure weekly health in your online community? Like what are the top 3 or 2 or 5 or whatever things?
So certainly attendance, and I can break that down just at least briefly, because that's a lot of people ask us, what do you track and how do you track it? And what's important. So there's a couple things that are very, very important to us. One is certainly attendance. Now, it's different within each platform. So attendance on Church Online, we utilize what they provide for us, which is, your viewer, your overall viewers, how many people are coming. That number is typically a much higher number than you see at one time on your platform, right? And we understand that, we get that, it just is what it is. So we use that number, knowing that number is pretty high. Same thing with the app. It's a unique viewer number. It's going to be very high. It's not, it is. But where we're given a lot of information is on Facebook and YouTube. And so what we utilize from them is a peak live viewer number. And the reason we do that is for a couple reasons. I'll just be honest. The main reason that we do that is because it's as close to what when we monitor the post, we have people monitoring our feeds at all times. It's the closest number to what we see as a consistent number that is on our feed the entire time.
Interesting.
And it is also the most conservative number that we're given from those platforms. So we as a church just tend to not try to blow smoke about anything.
Yeah.
We just are very much like, listen, if you think that that's a vanity stat, I don't even want to hear it. Like, tell me what you actually think it is. Yeah. And luckily, I love that because I think our leadership has promoted that feeling and that language. And you don't need to blow smoke. Just tell me what it is. But don't tell me it's vanity and then we find out it was way less than that. Now I'm upset about that. So anyway, peak live is typically the most conservative. So to give you percentage wise, if viewers at 3 seconds, right, is my highest number at 100%. For us, typically, you go to from viewers down to, so reach, let's just say is 100%. Well, that doesn't even really mean anything. Nobody's even really, maybe none of those people even saw it. Then viewers, which is 3 seconds, ours will typically drop about 50% from there, right? From like reach to viewers. Then from viewers for us to 10-second views drops about another like 40% from there. And then from 10-second views is the next stat they give you is peak live views. And so for that's typically pretty low. And I know from other churches that I've talked to, that's almost too low. It's like, I don't want to use that number. Like that number is too low to use. And I get that. And so that's where it's like, for us, that's what makes sense for us, but that might not what makes sense for you to use based on how you're measuring things. So peak live, if you don't know, it's just basically at its highest point, how many people were tuned in at one time.
Yeah.
So at any given time, what was the peak amount of people who were showed up at one time? I like that number because it kind of accurately represents how many people might have watched a full experience. Because, and what I tell our staff and just different people is, at your local campuses, you are not measuring how many people pulled into the parking lot and turned around and drove away. You know what I mean? And if you did that, or how many people drove by and saw the building, you're not measuring that. You wouldn't. That's stupid. It's pointless to do that. You're measuring how many people came and stayed the longest period of time. You know what I mean? So again, that's a difficult number to get to online. It takes some work that either, you might do it or you might not. I don't know. So anyway, that's what we meant. That's very important to us. So we just had to pick something, though, to start measuring, right? You've got to pick something to then give yourself a point, say, are we growing? Are we dying? What are we doing? And then, so that number is very important to us. Sharing is incredibly important to us. If you were to watch Elevation any weekend and it's myself hosting the welcome or whoever hosting in the pre-show and the post-show, one of the biggest calls to action that we're doing is telling people to share the experience. We know that you get exponential reach with doing that, but then that also tells us a couple things. It tells us if you care, you're going to share and if you just think about it in terms of your own life, you do not share things on your social media platform that you do not connect with or that you do not want people to know that you identify with, because there is so much crap that you might like. But you're like, I would never repost that thing. Yeah. Like, this stuff is so funny, but I don't want anybody to know that I'm liking this. I don't want anybody to know that I do this. If you share something, it's because it's done something for you and you want somebody else to know about it. So you don't share a ton. At least I don't. The people I talk to don't. So if you're sharing our content, I feel like it's made some sort of impact on your life. So that's very important to us. We know that there's exponential increase, and we hear story after story after story of people who found out about our church through somebody sharing a post. So that's important. The other thing that is extremely important is giving. How much giving is coming in through this. Now, it's not because it's just about the money. It's just because that's the highest form of engagement that we have to measure. I know that nobody in their right mind is going to give to Elevation Church from online just because I was happening across, I saw it, and I decided to give $300. No way. You're
Yeah.
giving to it because you've been impacted by it. So those three things are really what's important to us. We know that we have a lot of metrics that get people to that ultimate golden egg of like, hey, they gave. Wow, okay, that meant something to them. So, we have volunteers, we have e-groups, we have uh, like opportunities for people to be a part of, events that we do for what we call our EFAM. That's what we call our online community. We have lots of opportunities for people to engage, which are important to us, but not as important of knowing, is it connecting with people enough to share or give?
Yeah. Those are great. I mean, you are measuring it like a traditional, you're thinking about core metrics of health, which I love.
100%.
Which is smart. And I would encourage, I know we have a similar type of metrics, and you also you do some kind of measurement on your church online streaming side of isn't it like a 45-minute, or isn't there something that you did for a while where you're looking at even deeper retention there?
Yeah, I mean, so to be completely honest with you, I mean, we look at everything. I mean, we really do. I mean, if I give you access to our spreadsheets and stuff, if it's available, we will measure it and try to understand it and look at how long people are staying, and not even just how long people are staying. Maybe what you might be referring to is, we want to know when are people dropping off the most? When are people do people leave during the welcome? Is that not what they care about? And so what's cool with Facebook, at least, is you can go and scrub through your actual video and see the highs and lows of when people are actually sharing your experience and when people are commenting. And I love it, because I'll see, oh man, when I talked about sharing and really encourage people to share, our shares spiked to whatever, in that moment. So yeah, I mean, honestly, we gather as much data as we can. And again, it's just to inform us, some of it matters and some of it we don't really care about, but it's cool to look through. But we do want it to drive us. Our organization as a whole is very, very data and results driven. And that's kind of just the way we've always been. We do understand that data doesn't tell the whole story. There's always more going on, but it is a big story that we have. You know what I mean? I do have that story though. So I do want it to inform me.
I love that. So I got two final questions. The first question, I think, just kind of generally, what is your big goal for Assimilation? What does it look like for somebody? It sounds like somebody who lives close, obviously you kind of help them potentially get into one of your campuses. What do you do with somebody far from your church or a campus? What does that look like Assimilation wise within your online strategy?
Yeah, we had to decide a year and a half ago. Our pastor kind of had to decide, are we okay with calling this church, and are we okay with somebody staying at their house? And what we did is pretty much what you said, in the sense of, if you live close to a campus, I'm always going to encourage you to go. I mean, why wouldn't you want to go there?
Of course.
Just go. But we know that there are reasons people don't. They're homebound. They can't, whatever. But if you're outside of a campus, really what we decided, can we replicate what for us are kind of, if you want to say our core values, can we replicate those online? But for us, they're called the 4 Gs. So you wouldn't really hear them talked about like that. But there's 4 things that are really important to us. So it's giving, it's groups, like e-groups, small groups, whatever. It's using your gifts. So we would consider that to be, though, part of volunteering. Are you using what God's given you? And then growth, which are you helping our church to grow by inviting people? Are you growing? Things like that. So what we decided is, can we do that online? If we can, we feel good about that. So now blanket, we just call our online community our EFAM. This is a side note that you didn't ask me about, but I think it's very important to give them an identity. Give your online community an identity. When our pastor did that, he just did it randomly one day. He was on Facebook Live and was like, "Hey, EFAM," or he was like, "Hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in. I know people are joining us from all over the world. I want to start calling you our EFAM. You're our extended family here. But that's who you are." And so from that moment, it was almost a shift with our online community to where they were like, okay, I belong there. Like
Yeah.
they've given me a name, so I must be a part of it. So that's just a side note of like, man, if you've
Interesting.
got a big community who's trying to identify with your church, the best thing that you can do is actually give them an identity.
I love that.
What are they and how do they connect? But then, so what we would say is, hey, EFAM, you can be a part of this. We don't do your traditional membership. We don't have like a membership class, but what we would say is we want you to be involved in the 4Gs. So are you giving? Hopefully. Are you in an online e-group? So we have that whole system. Um, are you using your gifts? Well, how do I do that? Well, we have volunteer opportunities. Like, come and volunteer
Yeah.
with us online. Oh, you do? Yeah. So we tell them about that. And then, are you helping the growth of our church? And the primary way we do that is through sharing. We want you to share the worship experience. Keep on sharing. Share the posts. Share the social media. Share it all, So
I love
those
that.
would be the ways that I would say, if you're not here, near a location, you can still be a part of Elevation. We still consider you family. We just want to encourage you to do these 4 things and do them really well. So that was really what made it a thing for us.
Oh, I love that. I love that, identifying them. And because
Mm-hmm.
I do think that a lot of ministries, it's so easy to feel displaced if you're watching online.
Right.
Because especially, and I think this is a little bit probably of a generational thing. The younger you are, the more you're integrated with technology, the more you understand
Mm-hmm.
that, this stuff can be used a certain way. And I think, I notice it when I watch your pastor, that he's talking to the audience. And I've noticed it too. I tell this story all the time, that like, I remember when Craig Rochelle came and spoke at our church. The weirdest thing for me was, as a, with my pastor talks to the crowd in the room primarily, where like Craig did this thing where he talked directly to the camera. And it was
Yeah.
like I'm like, oh, this is so interesting, because he's done this mental shift of like, no, he realizes more people are watching this. And I noticed this with your pastor, where he'll make call outs to people watching online. And it's
Yeah.
just like, and I know some of that is just like seminary training, and it's seeing where the growth is, and just understanding like, no, those people too. And Rick has been amazing at it, but you see the shift of like, no, hey, how do we engage this person?
Right.
And I love that. I love that. I love that. So with the group stuff, does that mean, are you encouraging people to do online groups, or actually starting something in their homes and kind of making it? Because I know you guys have done extension stuff. You've done all
Yeah.
sorts of things. You really have led in
So,
that area.
so, um, so it's a little bit of both. So we do online e-groups, where we're encouraging people, and they're mostly done over Zoom, Skype, whatever they want to use. And I actually kind of learned that from you when we talked with you a while ago, and you were like, hey, we tried our own thing. People use what they want.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. We have people, again, if you do it, there's people all around the world who connect on Zoom or Skype, and they're in an e-group and meet weekly or bi-weekly or whatever it is. So we provide that. But then we have in-person e-groups, but then just kind of just something that has organically happened for us is we've kind of watched these, or that's a normal name or whatever, but that have just been popping up everywhere for us.
Wow.
I mean, like literally that we don't even know about, and we're finding out about, like, okay, 20 people in this area, 20 people in this area, 3 or 30 people in this area, 150 people up here, that we were like, wait,
That's
what?
crazy.
Like this dude connected with me, and he was like, yeah, there's 150 of us that meet. We have a salon that we meet in, and we stream the service every week. But I was like, wait a minute, like what? And he's like, yeah, we just love it, So we have these things that are popping up everywhere. So it's kind of this thing where we're trying to figure out, what do we do with these people? And
Yeah.
right now, what it is we're really just using it to inform our decisions, basically, and our decisions as a church. So yes, we do online e-groups. Some of them are in person. We have these watch parties popping up everywhere. We're just trying to, how do we steward all of these people who are like tuning in and wanting to be a part at their homes and stuff like that?
Well, okay. Well, I'm so many things, but the last question, because
Okay.
you so many, you guys are killing it in so many areas. But my last question is around what gets you most excited in like the near future that you guys are thinking about? Like you're okay, we need to nurture that moving forward. What's the thing that you guys are a forward thinking church? You guys, I mean, again, we were talking before we even started recording. I think you were one of the first churches. I mean, you're one of the only churches I know that's killing it on YouTube. Like literally, like you guys actually have a YouTube ministry. It's not just posting stuff up there, but like the amount of views and everything. You guys are thinking about that. What's something that you guys are kind of like, you think, it doesn't mean you have to know what it is, but like you're kind of, that's going to be a thing we need to process.
Well, I mean, honestly, I'm letting you see a little under the hood here of what we're like really in the process of doing right now, but it's really, we're building out, what does this look like to actually like staff each channel,
Wow.
like, so for instance, what does it look like to have a Facebook pastor, to have a YouTube pastor, to have a .online pastor? Like I am the online pastor, but if these are actual campuses and that these people aren't leaving these classes, can we care for them on their platform? And what does it look like to build a team around doing that? And so even on a Sunday morning, when you're tuned in, if you were to tune into Elevation on any given weekend during the welcome or pre-show or whatever, during the welcome, it comes to me, right? Typically, and I'm speaking to our whole online community. Well, this would split into 4 different channels. And at that time, again, just like a campus goes, we've got a Facebook pastor talking to Facebook, a YouTube pastor talking to YouTube. And for us, really, it's been something we've been thinking about for a while. Like, how does this look? And I think that we're just kind of ready to take a step in that direction and say, let's try it. Let's start going down that road and see what happens with that. And I think that it's a shift in mindset for sure. And I think that it's something that probably, I mean, it's one of those things where you're like, man, will this just become the norm of what it is in the future? But nobody's doing it yet, but let's just try it and see what happens and see if it makes a difference. And so I'm really, really excited about that though. Not necessarily because, oh man, wow, there's somebody talking directly to me on Facebook. But again, I think it almost validates where they are even more and saying like, hey, we care so much about the community that you are in. We're going to put even more effort to connect with you. And really that's what it's about. At the end of the day, for us, it's how do we connect the best with people where they are? And here's the deal. Today's day and age, I talk about this a lot where you can either, I heard a teaching before where somebody said you can receive, redeem, or reject whatever culture throws at you. You can just accept it for what it is. You can reject it, or you can redeem it and make it something better. And that's what we're trying to do with all of these platforms. Honestly, we know that people are attending church less. We know that people are living on Facebook, living on YouTube. We know that there's billions of people on, instead of saying, no way, I'm never doing that. Like those people need to be in a building. Maybe true. I'm not even saying that, but maybe true. Okay. But you saying that is not going to get them there. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's go to where they are. Let's meet them where they are, minister to them where they are. If someday we have a building there, fantastic. If one day in the future there are no more buildings and this is how we're doing it, well, let's utilize it to the best of our ability. I just think Jesus would be like, what are you guys doing? Like, you have this huge opportunity. Why not utilize it? Yeah. So what? Like, they're not there. Talk to them where they are. So I'm getting on a train, here, but that's where I'm at with that. And so that's kind of just a little under the hood of a direction that we're headed as a church.
Dude, that's awesome. And it's funny, I just emailed somebody this morning that reject, receive, redeem thing. So I was like cracking up in my head. I literally somebody was asking me a theological question about media and I was like talking. So anyways, I was like,
oh, that's funny. That's great.
But no, hey, Chad, I want to thank you for giving up time. And really, I mean, if you've made it this long and you're watching, listening to this, like you need to check out what they're doing. Cause what I love is, I think the easiest thing to do is to replicate. And what I've always appreciated about Elevation is that you guys will replicate if something's good, but you guys are pushing even that thought of like staffing, like that is like, there's all sorts of things there I'm thinking through but I love what you guys do. And I love the evangelistic But not just that, you guys aren't just like an evangelistic ministry. You're also wanting to pull people, the value of a local experience. And I think that's
Right.
tension, and you guys rock that. But thanks for giving up some time and connecting. Are you writing at all? Are you blogging? Are you sharing anything you're learning? Okay. Well, we'll talk about that another time.
We'll get on that. We can work on it for sure.
Okay.
But there's only limited hours of the day.
That's true. Yeah. Well, thanks for hanging out, man. And we'll talk soon.
Great.